So we begin this Tuesday edition of the SportsMax Zone with a matter of contention concerning athletics in the Caribbean. And we're heading to Guyana as we continue to analyze the events which led to 6 of the 12 member clubs of the country's Athletics Association staging a walkout ahead of their annual general meeting and elections on Sunday, March 16. Where Cheryl Hermanstein was eventually appointed AAG president. On Monday's show, Hermanstein outlined the incident that non-voters as well as now former president Aubrey Hutson cited as a prompt for their protest.
The executive or the life of the AAG came to an end on the 31st of January. Before the 31st of January, the systems were put in place for us to have our elections on the 16th of March, where the 8 clubs of our 12 clubs signed on to. However, sometime in February, a request was made by one club, and I think a few clubs signed on to it, requesting an extraordinary general meeting. So this is where they're saying it was unconstitutional because they were asking for an extra general meeting with the executive, with the former executive.
Mr. Hutson now joins us via Zoom to shed more light on the stages of the campaign he has deemed not in accordance with AAG mandate. Good afternoon again, Mr. Hutson. How are you doing?
Very, very fine. I'm just happy.
Yeah, well,
I'm just happy. Yes, disheartened by some of the circumstances, but I'm good.
Yeah, happy that you could join us this afternoon. So let's start by responding to what the new AAG president had to say in that soundbite that just went ago. She was talking a bit about, what was described as unconstitutional, explaining what she thought happened in the elections. Your response to that?
If the AAG life ended, and please forgive me, I'm in the front office where sometimes music would pass. I'm sorry about that. If the life of the AAG executive ended, then why was I chairing the meeting on Sunday? In what capacity I was chairing the meeting at? That's one. And two, I was made under item 3 to provide a presidential or a welcome by the president of the AAG. So that in itself contradicts what she is saying. The club's writing requesting an an extraordinary general meeting had to do with the letter that was sent pertaining to us holding AGM outside of the mandated window. There was no reason given in that letter. And the clubs need to know, tell me why, after giving you 4 years to run this association, you could not plan the AGM in time to satisfy the Constitution. And there were some other questions. But again, the walkout didn't primarily came from that. The walkout came primarily from the disrespect shown to clubs, who are the custodian of the sport in Guyana. They are the owners of the association.
Yeah.
And if it was so much about elections and me wanting to be president again, look at how many clubs walked out with me and how many votes the people that were left in there got. Had I sat in there and got 6 and I know I was going to get 7, I would have been president, but it's not about that. It's about us following the Constitution, ensuring that we uphold that document regardless of how the need for reform is in it. It's the governing document, and there were a lot shortfalls in preparation for the AGM.
Yeah.
The Constitution says, in our case, once 4 clubs requesting an extraordinary general meeting, it must be granted. They don't even have to, even if you don't like the reasons that they're giving for having it, the Constitution says once it's requested, you must grant it.
Okay, so 2 things. One, you spoke about the disrespect. So you said a lot of the clubs that walked out, it had nothing to do with the elections and who they wanted to win. You said something about disrespect, and I'd want you to explain a bit more to me as to what happened on the day that made these clubs feel disrespectful, or where did the disrespect come from leading you and other members to walk out?
A club tried to raise a motion on a point of order, which constitutionally is granted throughout the meeting. The motion had nothing to do with motions to accept a club or motion to make changes to the Constitution. This is a motion that would have affected the meeting on a point of order. And I'll go on to tell you how, sometimes people are just don't think. And the General Secretary started to bang the desk and said, no motion must be read. I said, but it's on a point of order. I am chairing this meeting. And once the motion is read and it's seconded, we can go into a debate on it, whether we accept the substance. But no, must not be read. Got up, stormed out, slammed the door, came back in, banged the desk, shouting down the club delegate, who is trying to say, all they're trying to do is read this motion. You don't have to accept it. I, the chairman, granted the motion to be read. And the fracas continued. And when clubs now trying to say, listen to me, for years, we've been treated with disrespect. For years, we've been asking for stuff and it's not being granted. And we have a GS who tells himself that he can do as he likes, when he likes, how he likes. And it came out that day in the meeting. At one point, the person who was invited to be the returning officer, and I learned this at the meeting, that was the person that was the returning officer. There was no vetting. There was no, hey, we're going to ask this person to come and do it. It was the GS who did everything. So the GS felt that he was in control and he must have his way with everything. So he started to bang the desk. And this is the head table that I'm sitting at right, to my left. And, clubs were told to shut up. You cannot speak. And it was a total fracas. And I know the last time I was on SportsMax, I know it was said candidly, but Mr. Hutson, you can't walk out on meetings like that. I hold myself to a very high standard. I choose the environment I want to exist in. And I was not going to subject myself to that kind of environment. I had a choice. I basically said the meeting is basically it's totally out of control. I had no control of it. I couldn't control the General Secretary and other persons who felt that the motion should not be read. But lo and behold, the same election returning officer came in and said, look, I have to go and my time is expensive. What you can do is hold the elections and then go back to your business. Now, you cannot do that because the executive that is going to be coming in may not necessarily be the same executive that is there from 2020 to 2024. And the clubs needed to ask that particular executive to address its concern as it relates to finance and reports and all the rest of it. So one of the members from the floor stood up and said, well, look, I'm endorsing what the returning officer is asking, and I want to move a motion again on a point of order that we have the elections now. And they're trying to grant it. And I'm like, no, man, come on. You cannot deny a motion on the floor as it relates to the validity of this meeting and then come back and accept a motion on the same hand as it relates to having elections, changing the entire order of the agenda to accommodate it. And at that stage, I realized, look, I can't have any part of this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said 2 things just now, Mr. Hudson, that piqued my interest because you said the delegates in frustration about feeling disrespected for years. And I would ask then, you have been president for upwards of 10 years. So would they have been feeling disrespected even under your governance?
I met with clubs at every opportunity that I have, providing answers. But again, it's after this Carifta saga that stuff became very, very crazy. And don't take my word for it. I can provide numbers for Julian Edmonds. I can provide numbers for Moses Pantlitz, who really and truly, I mean, just to call two names. These are coaches or executives in clubs who have really and truly been working hard and producing great athletes that have been representing this country. And again, Julian in particular, when was attempting the second emotion, was told to shut up. So what I'm speaking of is since the attempted suspension of the president, clubs been asking, what's going on with Mr. Hudson? Where's our president? They never called a meeting to address that issue. Never did. And as far as they're concerned, they can do as they like, and the club just have to toe the line.
Yeah, your narrative still begs the question, though, Mr. Hudson, because you said something 4 or 5 minutes ago that if you had stayed in for the election and the delegates that were in support of you, you would have probably gotten 7 votes and probably won the election. I would suggest to you that if it is that you want to see the right thing done and you felt that you were standing on firm ground, why wouldn't you stay in that meeting to, if you are confident that you would become president, to have things done the right way, which is what you're suggesting you had a problem with?
It was never about me being elected president.
I understand that. You said that. You said that, yeah. Mr. Hudson. So I understood that part. I'm just saying that if you are standing up for righteousness and proper governance, and you were confident on Sunday that if you stood your ground, you would have been president, why then wouldn't you have done that?
I was sitting president in 2023 when I was suspended. Because of the way the council functions, I just have 1 vote. So please understand, sitting in there with a cabal of people who basically hate your guts and don't see the sport the way you see it, or the administration of the sport the way you see it, you'll be drowned out. I tried to chair a meeting on Sunday, and I couldn't even be heard.
So would you want to revisit what you just said then, that if you stood your ground and your supporters stood their ground, that you'd have gotten 7 votes at least and won the election? You just said that 5 minutes ago. I'm going to repeat it. Yes.
I'm going to repeat it. That if I stood my ground and allowed things to go on, I would have gotten 7 votes. I would have been president. But I would have been president in an organization that for me is rogue.
Yeah, but if you're the president,
I couldn't even chair a meeting.
Yeah, but if you're the president, Mr. Hudson, I suggest that you would be putting yourself in a position to streamline things and improve things as far as the governance is concerned.
I beg to differ. I beg to differ on that because, again, the president in the way the Constitution is structured is basically got one power basically applied to him, which is 1, chairing meetings. But outside of that, if something has to be moved to the vote in a council meeting, it's 1 vote that I have. And if I have a council of 12 and 11 persons don't see the things the way I see them and say, well, look, we can do this, even though sometimes it's outside of the Constitution, they go ahead and do it. So it wasn't about the presidency. It was not about the presidency. It was about these executives respecting the clubs and giving them a chance to say the things that they had to say.
Mr. Hudson, is this case at rest as far as you are concerned? Results of the election on Sunday final, and you are now done with this?
Personally, Aubrey Hudson, again, since the last time we spoke, never sought the position of the presidency. Never go out there campaigning. The clubs would have seen my work. They would have seen the things that I do and want me to be president. If those clubs require my support in dealing with any issues in the AAG, even if it means taken legal action, which I am really and truly against. But if they need my support in that regard, I understand that they are the foundation on which we stand. I have to give them that support. So it's not about the elections. It's about the AGM and the conduct of the AGM and the upholding of the Constitution. Those are the things that we really and truly need to look at. Let the chips fall wherever they may be. Yeah. Whether I win or I lose, the Constitution was upheld. Yeah. Once you're going to flout with the Constitution, you're going to endure my wrath.
Yeah. Mr. Hudson, have clubs approached you in the last 48 hours about taking legal action based on what happened at the AGM on Sunday?
Yes.
What have those conversations been like?
Look, there are conversations that are ongoing. I really and truly don't want to give up the confidentiality that was placed in me by the clubs, but I could afford to say it is not a possibility that's been ruled out.
Mm-hmm. What does the Constitution say about taking legal action in scenarios like this?
We are going to ensure that all the courses that need to be had between South American atletismo, World Athletics are exhausted before I will encourage them or I will support them in taking legal action. But this is a call for the clubs. This is not a call for Aubrey Hudson. This is Aubrey Hudson giving support to clubs that I know has been disenfranchised, have been disrespected, and need the support of a president or a leader that has some bit of knowledge of the sport.
Mr. Hudson, it is my understanding that as we speak, there is a meeting going on now with a new executive headed by Cheryl Hermanstein, with the sports minister in Guyana, the National Sports Commission led by Steve Ninval, and also the Guyana Olympic Association as well with Mr. Monroe. And we have gathered that these bodies have supported your removal. Could it be that part of your resistance or lack of appetite in pursuing your position is that the mountain will be too hard to climb, given the important bodies, we called them yesterday on the show, the power brokers, not being in your corner?
You know what is surprising? Well, I shouldn't say surprising, because nothing surprises me in Guyana. They say it's not a real place. That after listening to that interview, that the power brokers will be happy with the outcome. Honestly speaking, it tells you, for me, that they need to have somebody in place that they can control. And they will not be able to control Aubrey Hudson. Aubrey Hudson is Guyana. Aubrey Hudson is athletics. Aubrey Hudson will not be controlled. And I think that's the key issue that probably is existing between myself and those power brokers. If the power brokers are happy to have a puppet, hey, what can I say about that? But I will be no puppet for anyone. I will carry out the mandate of the clubs, keeping within the rules and regulations of World Athletics and the Constitution of the Athletics Association of Guyana. And all the power brokers must understand that they need to come in line, right? I don't need to come in line with you. You need to understand our rules, our regulation, and let us meet halfway. Yeah, but I guess they got what they wanted.
Yeah, you referenced earlier on the fallout from the Carifta Games and the issues with the financing and the debacle that ensued during that period, which probably triggered a part of the division with your governance and some of the clubs involved. Am I understanding you correctly that that incident has tainted your relationship with a lot of the clubs?
I won't say the incident tainted my relationship with a lot of the clubs. Those clubs that voted, from my understanding, not being in the room, the clubs that voted for Ms. Hermanstein were clubs that, even if a horse was running against Aubrey Hudson, they would have voted for that horse. They're anti-Hudson from day one, because I came into the sport and I changed the status quo.
You mean
you check from 2013?
Yeah. You mean
You check from 2013 when I became president. The great incline in results, especially at CRIFT, if you want to take that as a litmus test. Just look back at it at what happened before. When we came home with 1 bronze medal, we had to make, oh boy, motorcade and all the rest of it. Now we're earning multiple medals and we're knocking at the door with Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and those other powerful nations who invest a lot more in sports than we do. And it was done with finances that a lot of times came directly from me, because nobody was interested in athletics. Even when I was out, even when Mr. Boyce was president, I loaned money to the Athletics Association of Guyana for travels to Carifta. So I haven't been doing this because I'm president. I love this sport, and I will continue to do what I could do for its development.
Yeah, Mr. Hutson, you know the World Athletics statutes quite well, and of course the Constitution of the Athletics Association of Guyana. What timeline are we talking about that the clubs have in case they want to pursue some sort of legal action?
I honestly don't know that there's a fixed timeline on this. There are multiplicities multiplicity of actions that could be taken. And I guess some of them they want to keep up their sleeves, because it's for me, I wouldn't even go to court. Me personally, I wouldn't even go down the legal line. There's so many things that could be done, and I'm sure you're going to be hearing about them quite soon. Right? The clubs are basically being tight-lipped. They're doing what they have to do. They're together. They would consult with me every now and then. But the key is, please understand, this is not about the elections.
Yeah.
This is about the conduct of the annual general meeting.
Yeah, and we completely understand that, Mr. Hutson. So if I'm to understand you correctly, sounds as if we're in for a long fight here, and this is far from over.
I think it's far from over. But what I'm telling you is that the clubs that I've spoken to, a lot of them, like me, love the sport, love athletics, and they will not do anything to hamper the progress of their athletes going to the different championships internationally. So the last thing that they would ever attempt to do, once they realize that, look, Guyana is going to be banned, or Guyana is going to be marginalized, or an athlete is going to be suspended and can't compete, they will not take that action. So they're going to be guided by the principle that they feel deep in their bosom that, look, we are here for athletics, but we must be respected.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Hudson, we are appreciative of the time that you have spent with us, because, of course, we spoke with the new president yesterday, and there are a lot of unanswered questions, and you just put forward your position just now. We didn't have enough time to get into the Adidas deal and what you think about it. It's probably something we can discuss further on, but we appreciate you spending the time to talk with us, Mr. Hudson, and we hope things can be sorted out in Guyana. Interesting that you just said that Guyana is not a real place, and that sounds disappointing coming from a Guyanese. But I know of other countries in the Caribbean that embrace a similar sentiment. So we leave it there for now.
Guyana can't be a real place when the president does not understand that half is a fraction.
We leave it there, Mr. Hudson, and we will talk to you again sometime, I suppose, if this story continues to build. Thanks a lot. So that's Aubrey Hudson. Great that we had him on today. Very effervescent, even in the moment of defeat or being unseated as the AAG president. But not surprisingly, Mariah and Ricardo, he had a lot to say.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, to me, it's always good to hear from different sides, because what the thing about this situation is, you know, we were not privy to being in the room, and some of the things that he said, you know, first time I'm hearing that side of it. So I'm happy that we had him on today, and as you said, you know, he's in a good mood. He's fine.
Yeah, well, the president, Cheryl Hermanstein, wasn't willing to go in depth into a lot of these issues yesterday. Clearly, Mr. Hutson, more open, more candid about what happened from his standpoint. And it's good that we've at least gotten...
two sides?
Well, I don't know if we've gotten two.
There are always three sides.
Because I'm not yet convinced that from Cheryl Hermanstein's perspective, we got her side. Because she really stayed away from answering what I would consider to be a few of the difficult questions. But it will be very interesting to see how this issue develops in Guyana, what the clubs do, how Aubrey Hudson assists or does not assist going forward. But yes, unfortunate that Guyana's athletics administration is still in this place, because we thought the AGM would deal with the issues, clear up all the issues, and allow athletics in the country to move on. But here we are. That does not seem to be happening, and that for me is the most unfortunate thing about this.
Yeah, and Guyana at the moment on a springboard of athletics talent. Tiana Springer, really, really outstanding. Toya Harvey, only a couple of weeks ago, awarded the Junior College Athlete of the Year in the United States. So they have athletes, Guyana, who are ready to burst on the international scene in a big way. We go to break. We'll be back with a lot more on the SportsMax Zone after this.